Alien female gladiator got scared and said, "You are not human, are you?" The sun had almost set over the gladiator arena, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. The arena itself was enormous, carved into the side of a jagged mountain, with thousands of alien spectators sitting in high stands. The sound of cheering, shouting, and the clashing of weapons echoed through the air. Every seat was filled. The aliens loved the gladiator games. They loved violence, and today the arena would see a fight unlike any other. Ethan Hayes walked carefully through the arena gates. He had been captured weeks ago from a distant human settlement, dragged across space, and thrown into this place. His hands were free now, but the chains he had worn had left marks on his wrists. He was a human soldier, trained to survive, trained to fight, but nothing had prepared him for this. The ground beneath him was covered in sand and dust, and the air smelled faintly of metal and smoke. Around him, the crowd's noise grew louder as he stepped into the center. Across the arena, Lyra appeared. She moved with grace and deadly precision. Her green scales glimmered under the fading sun, her armor shining like dark steel. She was tall and muscular, a champion gladiator who had fought and defeated dozens of opponents before. Her eyes, golden and sharp, fixed on Ethan. She had never seen a human in the arena. She had seen humans in stories, small and weak, easy to crush. But there was something different about Ethan. Lyra circled him slowly, her claws scraping lightly against the sand. The crowd roared in anticipation. Ethan did not raise his weapon immediately. He did not look afraid. He simply observed her, measuring her movements. Every step she took, every slight shift in her stance he memorized. Humans had a gift, a strange combination of calm and instinct, and Ethan was using it now. Lyra lunged first. Her blade, long and curved, swung toward Ethan's head. The movement was fast, but Ethan stepped back just in time, his bare hands barely brushing against the edge of the weapon. The crowd gasped. They had never seen a human react so quickly. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. She expected fear. She expected him to scream, to stumble, but he had not. Ethan moved forward now, stepping into the range of her attacks. He did not strike yet. Instead, he watched, waited, and let her energy flow into the attack. Then, with a sudden twist, he dodged under her next swing and kicked her lightly in the side. Lyra's armor clanged and she stumbled slightly. The crowd shouted in surprise. No human had ever touched her like this. Lyra's golden eyes narrowed. Her breathing quickened, but she did not stop. She attacked again, faster this time, spinning and striking from every angle. Ethan blocked one blow, ducked another, and then grabbed her arm, using her momentum to throw her slightly backward. She hit the ground but landed on her feet. Her tail flicked angrily. She could not believe it. Humans were supposed to be weak. Yet here he was, moving with speed and strength that defied her expectations. The arena roared louder than ever. Some aliens began betting on Lyra, confident she would crush the human easily. Others whispered, unsure now. Ethan stood calmly, his chest rising and falling steadily. He did not seem tired, even though they had been fighting for several minutes. Lyra attacked again, but this time she hesitated. Something about his movements was strange, intelligent, calculated. She stepped back and lowered her blade slightly, breathing hard. Her eyes met his and she whispered almost to herself, "You are not human, are you?" Ethan tilted his head slightly, a small smile on his face. "I am," he said quietly, though loud enough for her to hear. Lyra blinked, disbelief in her eyes. Humans were not supposed to survive like this. Humans were not supposed to fight like this. Yet here he stood, calm, strong, and almost impossible to defeat. She felt fear for the first time in the arena, fear and a strange respect. The crowd continued to cheer, but now the noise had changed. It was not just excitement. There was confusion, awe, and even a little fear. Aliens who had watched Lyra fight for years began to whisper among themselves, "Can he really be human? No human can do that." Ethan circled her slowly now, careful not to give her an opening. His eyes scanned the arena. He noticed the weapons scattered around the sand, the gaps in the guards' patrols, and even the way the sun glinted off the high walls. Humans had always survived against impossible odds. He had been trained to notice small things like this, and he would use them if he had to. Lyra attacked again, faster than before, but this time Ethan did not just dodge. He parried with his hands, blocking her blade with surprising strength. Sparks flew as metal met skin. She staggered back, breathing heavily. Sweat ran down her forehead. She could not understand it. Humans were supposed to be weak, but he was like a predator, precise and fast. For a moment they stood still, staring at each other. Lyra's tail flicked nervously. Ethan's eyes were calm, unwavering. Then the crowd noticed something. Lyra, the unbeatable gladiator, had stopped attacking fully. Her strikes were slower, less confident. The human had broken her rhythm. You fight like a monster," Lyra said, her voice shaking slightly. She took a small step back, lowering her weapon more. How are you human?" Ethan's smile grew a little. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he watched her movements, learning, studying, and predicting. He knew that fear could be a weapon. Lyra was strong, fast, and deadly, but now she doubted herself. Now she hesitated, and hesitation in the arena could mean defeat. Lyra's breathing grew heavier. She tried to regain control, attacking again, but her strikes were sloppy, unbalanced. Ethan dodged and blocked, using minimal effort, letting her energy work against her. A final swing came, and Ethan caught her arm, twisting slightly. She fell to the sand again, harder this time, her armor clanging loudly. The crowd gasped. Some cheered, some booed, but all were shocked. Ethan extended a hand to help her up. "It does not have to be like this," he said simply. "We don't need to fight each other." Lyra hesitated. She had been trained to trust no one. She had been betrayed by friends and enemies alike. But there was something different about this human, something real. She took his hand, letting him pull her to her feet. For the first time, Lyra looked at a human not as prey, not as weak, but as something strong, something dangerous, something worthy of respect. She had never seen a human like Ethan before. He had survived in the arena when no one thought he could. He had fought like a predator and had lived. The crowd was still cheering, but now it felt different. Something had changed. The undefeated alien champion had been bested, not by brute force, but by skill, intelligence, and courage. And Lyra, the greatest gladiator in the arena, had begun to understand something she had never believed before. Humans were not weak. Humans were dangerous. She stepped back, breathing hard. Her golden eyes never left Ethan. Maybe humans are more than I thought," she whispered almost to herself. Fear still lingered, but so did something else. Respect. Ethan looked around, then back at her. "We survive," he said quietly. "Humans always survive." The sun disappeared behind the mountains. The arena was filled with noise and confusion. But in the center, two figures stood, different from the rest. One was a human, small but strong, calm but deadly. The other was an alien gladiator, proud and fierce, now beginning to see humans in a new light. And the story had only just begun. The arena gates had closed behind them, but Ethan and Lyra were not free yet. The sounds of cheering and shouting still echoed from above, but beneath the arena, dark corridors twisted like a maze. The walls were cold metal, and the air smelled of oil and dust. Guards walked past occasionally, and Ethan could see that the security was tight. Yet he did not panic. "Where are we going?" Lyra asked quietly. Her tail flicked nervously behind her. She had fought countless battles, but this felt different. This human had survived where most would have died, and now she followed him into the shadows. "Somewhere safe," Ethan replied. He moved carefully, listening to every sound. His eyes scanned the corridors, noticing the small things. A loose panel in the wall, a shadow where a guard might hide, a vent above their heads. Humans were trained to see what others missed, and that training kept them alive. Lyra hesitated. I don't know if I trust you, she said. Humans are weak, but you are not like the others. How do I know this isn't a trap? Ethan smiled slightly. Because I don't need to trap you. We both want the same thing, freedom. For a moment, Lyra thought about refusing, about running back into the arena and hiding. But then she remembered the months of fighting, the endless battles, the nights when she had cried alone in her cell. She remembered the fear, the pain, the loneliness. Maybe humans were weak, but maybe this one human was different. She fell in step beside him. Fine, she said, but if you trick me, I will kill you. Ethan nodded. Fair enough. They moved quietly down the corridors. Guards passed by, unaware of the two prisoners moving in the shadows. Ethan noticed a door that led to a storage room. This way, he whispered. Inside, the room was filled with crates and weapons. Ethan examined the crates carefully. Most were alien swords and spears, but some contained strange devices and armor. Humans can use this, Lyra asked. Maybe not all of it, Ethan said, but I can use some. Lyra watched him pick up a small alien dagger. He held it carefully as if learning its weight. Then he tossed it lightly in the air and caught it. His movements were precise, practiced. Humans are strange, she said. You are not strong like a warrior, but you survive. You fight differently. Ethan nodded. We have to. If we fight like everyone else, we die. They continued down the corridors until they reached a locked gate. The lock was large and mechanical, and several guards patrolled nearby. Ethan crouched and examined the mechanism. He noticed a small panel with wires. This can work, he said, but I need you to cover me. Lyra's eyes narrowed. I do not cover humans, they are too weak. Ethan looked at her calmly. I am not like the others. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. She moved to the shadows, her claws ready. Ethan carefully manipulated the wires, using his hands to twist and press the small buttons. Sparks flew, but the lock clicked open. Good, Ethan said. Let's go. They moved through the gate and found themselves in a long corridor that led to the arena's outer walls. The walls were tall and the ground below was a drop of several meters. Ethan scanned the area. Guards were fewer here, but the exit was still heavily watched. Do you have a plan? Lyra asked. I do, Ethan said. We wait for the right moment, then we move fast. Humans are quick, faster than most aliens expect. Lyra studied him carefully. You are brave or maybe foolish. Ethan smiled slightly. Maybe both. They waited in the shadows, watching the guards. Minutes passed. Then one guard turned the corner, his eyes scanning. Lyra tensed, ready to attack. Ethan held up a hand. Not yet, he whispered. The guard moved past, unaware. Ethan and Lyra moved forward silently, shadow to shadow. They reached a side door that led outside. The light from the setting sun spilled into the corridor. Ethan pushed the door open slowly, then looked at Lyra. Ready? He asked. Lyra nodded. I am ready. They slipped out of the arena and into a narrow alley. The city outside was massive, full of tall towers and moving vehicles. The streets were crowded with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Many were busy with their own tasks, unaware of the two fugitives. Ethan moved quickly, blending into the crowd. Lyra followed, amazed at how humans could move without drawing attention. You really are clever, she said. I thought humans were easy to see, easy to catch, but you disappear in plain sight. Ethan smiled. We have to, otherwise we die. They moved through the city, avoiding patrols and security cameras. Lyra could not help but notice how the humans thought differently. He did not rely on strength. He relied on observation, timing, and cleverness. She had never met a creature like him. After a while, they reached a quieter area, far from the city's busy streets. Here they could rest for a moment. Lyra sat on a low wall, her tail curled around her. Ethan crouched beside her, his eyes scanning the area. Why do you help me? Lyra asked finally. I am an alien. You could have left me in the arena to die. Ethan looked at her. Because it is right. I do not fight for glory or money. I fight for survival, and I do not leave anyone behind if I can help them. That is how humans are. Lyra studied him. Humans are strange. You are not like the others I have seen. You are dangerous." Ethan nodded. "That is the truth. We survive. That is all that matters." They continued moving through the quiet streets, searching for a safe place to hide. They passed abandoned buildings, alleys filled with smoke, and empty squares. Ethan led Lyra to an old warehouse, hidden from view. Inside, the air was cool and dry, and there were boxes and old equipment scattered around. "This will do for now," Ethan said. "We can rest here, plan our next move." Lyra looked around, still unsure. "You really think we can escape this city, the arena, the guards?" Ethan smiled. "We have to, and humans always find a way." They rested for a while, catching their breath. Lyra watched him closely. She could see the intelligence in his eyes, the patience, the calmness even after a long fight. She had never met anyone like him. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, and easy to break. But this one human, he was different. After some time, Ethan stood. "We need a plan," he said. "The arena is part of a bigger system. They capture fighters, train them, and sell them as weapons. If we want freedom, we cannot just escape the city. We need to strike at the heart of their system." Lyra's eyes widened. "You want to fight them, all of them?" Ethan nodded. "Not alone, but we can find others who are oppressed, others who want freedom. Together we can take down the system from the inside." Lyra felt a spark of hope for the first time. She had lived her life in fear, fighting for survival. Now, maybe, there was a chance for something more, a chance to be free. Ethan moved over to a small crate and pulled out a few weapons. "We will need these," he said. "We cannot fight like they expect. We need speed, strategy, and surprise." Lyra picked up a blade and tested its weight. She was skilled with weapons, but she realized that humans used weapons differently. They did not rely on strength alone. They relied on timing, cleverness, and instinct. For hours, they trained quietly in the warehouse. Ethan showed her how to move silently, how to use her strength with precision, and how to plan attacks instead of relying on raw power. Lyra began to understand. Humans were not weak. They were not fragile. They were something else entirely. As night fell, they finally sat down, exhausted but alive. Lyra looked at Ethan. "Maybe humans are more than I thought," she said quietly. "Maybe I misjudged your kind." Ethan nodded. "We survived, Lyra. That is all that matters. And together we can be stronger than they ever imagined." Outside, the city lights glimmered in the darkness. The arena, the streets, the guards, all of it seemed smaller now. For the first time, Lyra felt a sense of hope, a sense that freedom was possible. And beside her, a human who had survived impossible odds, who had shown her courage, strength, and intelligence, promised that the fight was just beginning. They sat in silence, listening to the distant hum of the city. Together, they were no longer just a human and a gladiator. They were allies, and the story of their escape, their fight, and the truth about humans had only just begun. Ethan and Lyra moved carefully through the dark streets of the alien city. The city was alive with motion even at night, strange lights glimmering from tall towers and vehicles moving silently above them. Most aliens were busy with their own business, unaware of the two fugitives moving through the shadows. Ethan's eyes scanned every corner, every shadow. Humans could notice small details others missed, and that skill kept them alive. "We need to find the base," Ethan whispered to Lyra. "It is the source of the Gladiator system. The arena is just one part. If we destroy the base, we can free everyone." Lyra nodded. She had never left the arena except for special events, and she had never seen the city from this side. It was larger than she imagined, with streets twisting in directions that made little sense, and towers that reached so high they disappeared in the clouds. "How do you know where the base is?" she asked. Ethan smiled slightly. "I've seen patterns. Gladiators are always taken from certain districts. Supplies and weapons move the same way every day. There is only one place that makes sense." They moved quietly through the streets, avoiding patrols and security cameras. Lyra marveled at Ethan's calmness. Most humans would panic in this city. Most humans would be caught or killed. But Ethan moved with confidence, precise steps that took him closer to the hidden base. After an hour, they reached a district that looked abandoned. Broken buildings, empty streets, and scattered debris made it almost invisible to outsiders. Ethan checked the buildings, peeking through windows and vents. Finally, he stopped. "This is it," he said. Lyra followed his gaze and saw a large building guarded by armed aliens. Pipes and wires ran across the walls and the smell of oil and smoke filled the air. "This is where they hold the gladiators," she asked. Ethan nodded. "And maybe other prisoners. Weapons, training facilities, everything. We need to get inside, but quietly. We cannot alert the entire city." Lyra crouched beside him. "How do we get in?" Ethan looked around, noticing a vent partially hidden behind some crates. "That way," he whispered. "It leads inside, but we have to be careful." The guards rotate every few minutes, so timing is important. They waited in the shadows, watching the guards. One guard walked past, then another, and finally the path was clear. Ethan moved first, slipping into the vent. Lyra followed, her claws gripping the metal tightly. The vent was dark and narrow, forcing them to crawl slowly. After several minutes, they reached a point where the vent opened into a storage room. Crates and equipment filled the room. Ethan dropped down silently, landing on his feet. Lyra followed, her body tensing as she scanned the room for threats. "Good," Ethan said quietly. "We're inside, now we find the prisoners." They moved carefully, avoiding patrols. Ethan showed Lyra how to move quietly, how to blend with the shadows, and how to notice small details like wires, locks, and guards' patterns. Lyra realized that humans were not just strong. They were clever, patient, and precise. Finally, they reached a corridor lined with cells. Inside, aliens of all shapes and sizes were held in chains. Some were injured, others were weak from hunger. Lyra's heart ached as she saw their suffering. She had never seen so many creatures trapped and helpless. "These are the gladiators," Lyra whispered. "All of them forced to fight," Ethan nodded. "And we're going to free them." He moved to the first cell and examined the lock. It was large, mechanical, but not complicated. He worked quickly, using small tools he had taken from the storage room. Sparks flew, but finally the lock clicked open. Lyra stepped forward, helping the prisoners stand. "Go," she whispered. "Move quickly. Don't make a sound." One by one, the prisoners followed Ethan and Lyra through the corridor. They moved slowly but steadily, avoiding guards and security cameras. Ethan led them to a side exit, a small door that led to a hidden alley. Outside, the night air was cool and the city lights glimmered above them. "This way," Ethan said. "We need to move to safety before they notice the escape." The group moved through the empty streets, some aliens too weak to run fast. Lyra helped carry a few, while Ethan guided them with calm precision. Humans were not just strong. They could inspire others, lead others, and make them act when fear would normally freeze them. After a while, they reached an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was large and dark, but it would serve as a temporary hideout. Ethan helped the prisoners inside, closing the door quietly behind them. "Rest here for a moment," Ethan said. "We need to plan our next move." Lyra looked around at the freed prisoners. "We've saved them," she said softly, "but there are more, many more. And the base, the arena, they will come after us." Ethan nodded. "I know, but humans survive. That is what we do, and together we can fight back." The freed prisoners began to talk among themselves, grateful and scared at the same time. Some had never seen a human, and they looked at Ethan with awe. Lyra noticed their expressions and felt pride. She had been trained to fight alone, to trust no one. But now she was part of a team led by a human. Hours passed as they rested. Ethan and Lyra discussed their plan. They would not just escape, they would strike at the heart of the system. They would destroy the base, free more prisoners, and weaken the arena's control over the city. "We need weapons," Ethan said finally, "and allies." Some of these prisoners may fight with us, but we need more. We need a plan that will make the system crumble. Lyra nodded. I know a few people, warriors like me who hate the arena and want freedom. They will help us if we reach them. Ethan smiled slightly. Good. Then we move at dawn. We strike before they even know we are here. Night passed slowly, with everyone taking turns keeping watch. Lyra stayed close to Ethan, watching him carefully. She had seen many fighters, many strong aliens, but none like this human. He was calm under pressure, clever in planning, and fearless in the face of danger. She began to understand why humans were feared in stories, because when humans fought, they did not fight like others. They fought with intelligence, courage, and instinct. As the first light of dawn touched the city, Ethan gathered the group. It's time, he said. We move now. Remember, we fight smart. We do not rush blindly, and we never give up. Lyra felt a surge of determination. For the first time in her life, she was not fighting for survival alone. She was fighting for freedom, for herself, for her people, and for creatures who could not fight for themselves. They moved through the streets quietly, blending with the morning shadows. The city was waking, but the streets were still mostly empty. Ethan led them to the edge of the district, where they would strike at the base. When they reached the perimeter, they saw guards patrolling, armed and alert. Ethan whispered instructions, showing them how to move silently, how to use the shadows, and how to distract the guards. Lyra followed every movement, impressed at how humans could plan every detail. The first guard passed, unaware of the group hiding nearby. Ethan signaled and Lyra moved quickly, disabling a security panel with her claws. A door opened slightly, enough for the group to slip inside. Inside the base, the air was heavy with the smell of oil and metal. Machines hummed quietly, and alien guards moved through the halls. Ethan led the group carefully, avoiding patrols and observing every detail. Finally, they reached a central chamber. Crates of weapons, armor, and supplies filled the room. In one corner, more prisoners were held in chains, weak and scared. Lyra's heart ached as she saw them. "We are here," Ethan whispered. "We free them, then we strike." With precision and teamwork, they moved quickly. Ethan unlocked cells, freed prisoners, and organized them. Lyra and the others handled guards quietly, using their strength and speed to disable them without raising alarm. By the time the base began to notice the disturbance, Ethan and Lyra had freed dozens of prisoners. They moved them to the exit, blending into the shadows, using every human tactic of stealth and strategy. When they finally reached safety outside the base, the sun was fully up. The city below was waking, unaware that a human and an alien gladiator had struck a decisive blow against the system. Lyra looked at Ethan, her golden eyes wide. You really are human," she said softly, "and you are more than I imagined." Ethan smiled slightly. "We survive. That is all humans do, and today we have changed things." Lyra nodded. For the first time in her life, she felt hope, not just for herself, but for everyone who had suffered under the arena's rule. Humans were not weak. They were clever, brave, and dangerous. And now she had seen it with her own eyes. The battle was not over, but the first strike had been made. And with Ethan leading them, Lyra knew that freedom was possible. Ethan led the group through the city outskirts, moving quickly but carefully. The freed prisoners were tired, some injured, but their spirits were high. They had escaped the base, and now they could fight back. Lyra walked beside Ethan, keeping watch, her golden eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of danger. "We need to reach the fortress," Ethan said quietly. "That is where Grakthar, the warlord, is. He controls the arena and the base. If we defeat him, the city and the gladiators will be free." Lyra nodded. "Grakthar is strong. He has fought the best warriors in the galaxy. Many have died trying to defeat him." Ethan's eyes were calm. "Strength alone is not enough. Humans fight differently. We use strategy, speed, and surprise, and we never give up." They moved through narrow streets, avoiding patrols and security cameras. Ethan showed the group how to move quietly, how to use the shadows, and how to work together. Humans could lead, plan, and think in ways that most aliens did not expect. Lyra watched him carefully, impressed by his intelligence and courage. After a while, they reached the outer walls of Grakthar's fortress. It was massive, made of black metal, with towers rising high into the sky. Guards patrolled the perimeter, armed with weapons far stronger than those Ethan had seen in the arena. "This is going to be dangerous," Lyra whispered. Ethan nodded. "I know, but we have an advantage. They do not expect humans to fight like this. They rely on brute strength. We rely on brains and teamwork." They waited in the shadows, watching the guards. Ethan studied their movements, memorizing the patterns. He pointed to a section of the wall with a loose panel. "We go in here," he said. "It leads to a vent that goes inside the fortress. We can reach Grakthar without being seen." Lyra studied the vent. "It is small, but we can fit. Are you sure it is safe?" Ethan smiled slightly. "Nothing is completely safe, but it is our best chance." One by one, the group climbed into the vent. It was dark and narrow, forcing them to crawl slowly. Ethan led, guiding the others and keeping them quiet. After several minutes, they reached a point where the vent opened into a hallway inside the fortress. They dropped down silently, landing on their feet. Lyra's claws scraped lightly against the metal floor, but no one noticed. Ethan led the group forward, keeping them hidden in the shadows. Guards passed by, unaware of the intruders. Finally, they reached the central chamber. It was enormous, filled with weapons, armor, and strange devices. In the center, Grakthar waited. He was massive, with dark scales and muscles that bulged under his armor. His eyes glowed red as he saw the group enter. "Who dares enter my fortress?" Grakthar's voice echoed through the room. Ethan stepped forward calmly. "We do. And we are here to end your control over the gladiators." Grakthar laughed, a deep, terrifying sound. "A human and a few weak aliens think they can defeat me. You will die." Ethan did not move. He studied Grakthar carefully, noting his stance, the way he held his weapon, the patterns in his movements. Humans were not the strongest creatures, but they were clever. They could use knowledge, planning, and instinct to survive. Grakthar lunged first. His massive blade swung toward Ethan with incredible speed. Most aliens would have been too slow to react, but Ethan moved differently. He dodged, twisted, and used Grakthar's momentum against him, making him stumble slightly. Lyra and the others attacked the guards, moving quickly and quietly. Ethan focused on Grakthar, knowing that defeating him would end the battle. He noticed a weak spot in the warlord's armor, a small gap near the shoulder. Humans were good at noticing small details. He would use this to his advantage. Grakthar swung again, and Ethan ducked under the blade, rolling to the side. He struck quickly, hitting the weak spot. Sparks flew as metal met metal, and Grakthar roared in pain. The guards paused, confused. They had never seen a human fight like this. Lyra joined the fight against the guards, using her strength and speed to disable them. Ethan moved with precision, striking where it mattered most. Humans were not stronger than Grakthar, but they were faster, smarter, and more unpredictable. The battle raged on, with guards and prisoners fighting together. Ethan coordinated them, giving instructions, showing them where to strike and when to move. Humans were leaders, and their presence inspired others. Aliens who had been afraid now fought with courage, following Ethan's strategy. Grakthar tried to strike Ethan again, but the human was ready. He dodged, blocked, and struck with precision. Every move was calculated, using Grakthar's strength against him. The warlord was strong, but he was not clever, and humans were clever. Lyra fought beside Ethan, amazed at his skill. She had never seen a human move like this, think like this, survive like this. He was not just a fighter, he was a strategist, a leader, and a predator all at once. Finally, Ethan saw his chance. Grakthar overextended in an attack, leaving his side exposed. Ethan struck quickly, using all his strength and speed. The warlord roared and fell to the ground, stunned. The guards around him froze, unsure what to do. Lyra stepped forward, her claws ready. "It is over," she said, her voice steady. "Surrender or face the same fate." Grakthar struggled to rise but could not. He looked at Ethan with hatred and disbelief. "A human defeated me," he whispered. Ethan nodded. "We survive. That is what humans do." The remaining guards surrendered, seeing that their leader was defeated. The prisoners cheered, finally free from fear. Lyra looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with respect and awe. She had never believed humans could be like this. Not just strong, not just brave, but smart, fearless, and unstoppable. Ethan helped the prisoners move to safety, guiding them through the fortress. They destroyed the base's control systems, burned the weapons, and freed any remaining captives. By the time the city realized what had happened, the gladiators were already escaping, led by humans and aliens who had learned to fight together. Lyra stayed close to Ethan. "I never thought humans could do this," she said softly. "You are not just fighters, you are something more." Ethan smiled slightly. "We survive, and we fight for those who cannot. That is what humans do." The fortress was in ruins, the warlord defeated, and the prisoners free. Lyra looked at the horizon, the sun rising over the city. For the first time, she felt hope, courage, and trust. Humans were not weak. They were clever, strong, and unstoppable when they fought together. Ethan turned to her. "This is only the beginning. We have shown them what humans can do, but there is more work to be done. The arena, the city, the system, they will not give up easily. We have to be ready." Lyra nodded. "Then we fight together, humans and aliens side by side." Ethan smiled. "Exactly. That is how freedom is won. That is how humans survive." As they moved through the city, leading the freed prisoners, the aliens who had once feared humans now looked at them with awe. Humans were not just survivors. They were leaders, fighters, and heroes. And in the shadow of the ruined fortress, Lyra realized that the humans she had doubted were more than she had ever imagined. The battle had been won, but the war for freedom was just beginning. And with humans like Ethan leading the way, there was no force in the galaxy that could stand against them. The city was quiet now. The fortress was in ruins, the warlord Grakthar defeated, and the prisoners were free. Ethan and Lyra walked through the streets with the group of aliens who had once been captives. The sun was rising, painting the buildings with soft gold light. The city had changed overnight. Where there had been fear, there was now hope. Where there had been despair, there was now courage. Lyra looked around, her golden eyes wide. "I never imagined freedom would feel like this," she said softly. "The city, it is different now. And humans, they are different too." Ethan nodded. "Humans survive, that is what we do. And when we help others, they survive too. We fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone who cannot fight alone." The freed prisoners were moving cautiously through the streets. Some were still scared, glancing at buildings and towers that had once held them captive. Others were curious, touching the ground, looking at the sky and taking in the sunlight. They had never known a life without chains. Now, for the first time, it was theirs. Lyra stepped beside Ethan. "What happens now?" she asked. "The arena, the system, it is not completely gone. Others will come, others will try to take control." Ethan looked at her calmly. "Then we stay ready. Humans fight with courage, speed, and intelligence. We plan, we lead, and we never give up." Lyra studied him carefully. She had been trained to fight alone, to trust no one. But now she realized that humans were not only survivors, they were leaders. They could inspire, guide, and unite others. And Ethan was the best example of that. They reached a quiet square, away from the city's main roads. Ethan gathered the freed prisoners. "Listen," he said, "today you are free. You have survived the arena, the base, and the warlord. But the world is bigger than this city. There are others like you, others who need help. You can fight for your freedom, protect each other, and make sure no one suffers as you did." The aliens listened, their eyes wide. Ethan's voice was calm, steady, and filled with confidence. Lyra noticed how his words made them feel brave, even though many had been weak and scared moments before. Humans had a way of inspiring hope. One of the aliens, a small fighter named Kara, stepped forward. "And you?" she asked. "You will stay with us." Ethan smiled slightly. "I will stay as long as I am needed. Humans fight for those who cannot fight alone. That is our strength." Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had fought for herself, for survival, and for the chance to win the arena, but she had never fought for something greater. Now, with Ethan, she realized that there was more to life than battles. There was purpose, there was honor, there was freedom. The group moved through the city, securing areas and helping those who were still trapped or afraid. Ethan taught them how to work together, how to watch for danger, and how to protect each other. Lyra followed his instructions, amazed at how humans could combine strategy, courage, and skill in ways that few aliens understood. By midday, the city was transforming. Guards who had once ruled with fear were gone. The prisoners moved freely, reclaiming streets, alleys, and buildings. Citizens who had watched silently began to come out, curious and cautious. They saw humans and aliens working together, and they realized that the world could be different. Lyra looked at Ethan. You changed everything," she said quietly. "You did not just fight, you taught us, you led us. And you showed us that humans are more than I ever imagined." Ethan shrugged slightly. "We survive, Lyra, and sometimes survival is not enough. We fight for others and we fight smart. That is how humans win." The freed prisoners gathered in the central square. Ethan stepped forward, addressing them. "Today is not just about surviving, it is about living. You are free now. You have the chance to make your own choices, to protect each other, and to fight for a better future. Humans are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. But we are clever, brave, and we never give up. That is why we survive, and that is why we win." The aliens listened, their faces serious but inspired. Lyra felt her heart swell with pride. She had always believed strength came from power and skill. But now she saw that intelligence, courage, and teamwork mattered more. Humans had shown her that. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Ethan led a group to the ruins of the fortress. They had to make sure no enemy forces remained, no traps were left, and no prisoners were still captive. Lyra and the others followed, working together with determination. Every move was careful, precise, and deliberate. Humans had taught them to think, to plan, and to act with purpose. When they reached the fortress, they found it empty, abandoned by the remaining guards. Ethan led them inside, inspecting every room. Weapons and supplies were scattered, but nothing could harm them now. Lyra walked beside him, her eyes scanning every corner. She realized that humans were not just survivors, they were protectors. They could change the world one action at a time. After securing the fortress, they returned to the city. The citizens watched as Ethan, Lyra, and the freed prisoners moved through the streets. Humans and aliens working together. It was a sight that no one had imagined possible. The arena, once a symbol of fear, was now a place of hope. The city had changed. And humans had shown their power, not through brute strength alone, but through intelligence, courage, and leadership. Lyra stopped for a moment, looking at Ethan. "I thought humans were weak," she admitted. "But now I see. You are strong in ways I could not understand before. You fight not just with your body, but with your mind and your heart. And that makes you unstoppable." Ethan smiled slightly. "We survive, Lyra, and we fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. That is what humans do." The group continued to move through the city, helping citizens rebuild, rescuing those still trapped, and making sure no one was left behind. Lyra saw the respect and trust that humans inspired. It was not fear. They did not command it through strength alone. They earned it through courage, intelligence, and action. As evening approached, the city was calmer. The sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Ethan and Lyra stood together on a high platform, looking out over the city. The streets were filled with life, laughter, and hope. The arena was no longer a place of death, it was a symbol of freedom. Lyra turned to Ethan. "I owe you my life," she said quietly, "and I owe the others theirs. Humans, you are more than I ever imagined. You are not weak, not fragile, not easy to defeat. You are unstoppable." Ethan shook his head slightly. "We are not unstoppable alone, but together with courage, planning, and teamwork we can survive anything. That is what humans do," Lyra smiled. "Then we fight together." "Humans and aliens side by side," Ethan nodded. "Exactly, and we will for freedom, for justice, and for everyone who cannot fight alone." That night the city slept in peace for the first time in years. The arena and the fortress were quiet, the warlord defeated, and the prisoners free. Humans had shown their true strength, not just in battle but in leadership, courage, and intelligence. Lyra understood now why humans were feared and respected. They were not just fighters, they were survivors, leaders, and heroes. Ethan stood silently, looking at the horizon. He knew the fight was not over. Other threats would come, other cities would need help, other warriors would rise. But humans had a way of surviving, of leading, and of inspiring hope. And with allies like Lyra and the freed prisoners, they would be unstoppable. Lyra stepped beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything. For showing me what humans are really like." Ethan smiled slightly. "We survive, and we fight. That is all humans do." The stars began to appear in the night sky, and the city below glimmered with light. For the first time, Lyra felt true hope. She had fought for herself, for survival, and for freedom. And now she understood humans. They were not just survivors, they were heroes, leaders, and friends. Together, Ethan and Lyra looked at the city they had helped save. The battle was won, the prisoners were free, and the world had changed. Humans had proven their strength, not just in fighting, but in courage, intelligence, and heart. And for Lyra, the alien gladiator who had once been afraid, the human warrior who had changed everything, it was clear. Humans were more than she had ever imagined. They were unstoppable. The city was free. The arena was silent. And the humans had shown the galaxy what it meant to survive and to fight for others.